Welcome to the intersection of technology, cybersecurity, and society. Welcome to ITSP Magazine. Knowledge is power, now more than ever.
Hello, everybody. This is Sean Martin, your host for the Redefining CyberSecurity podcast here on ITSPmagazine Podcast Network, where I get to have amazing people on to help me understand better, and hopefully you understand better, our listeners, how to operationalize security. And there's a lot to that. A few words mean so many things. And for those who have followed ITSP Magazine for a while, you might know that Marco, my co-founder, and I started ITSP Magazine for the very reason of the topic that I'm going to discuss today, and that's the human element of cybersecurity. And we did that in the context of all the human elements of cyber, both as a user and as a practitioner and as a leader, and as you know from our tagline, its impact on society as a whole. So a collection of humans. And so when I saw a post from my guest, Julie Haney, hey, Julie, thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
I said, we have to talk about this. Anytime we get some insight on what the human has to do with cyber, I'm totally interested. And Julie is working on some stuff with NIST around the human-centered cybersecurity program, which we're going to get into. And Julie, before we do that, though, a few words about who you are. Are you human?
I
makes
am
you
human. I have not recently been generated by an AI. I don't think. Yeah, I am human. I lead the human-centered cybersecurity program at the National Institute of Standards and Technology, otherwise known as NIST.
And you're very humble when you say that. Tell us a little bit about your journey into that role. Maybe some of the things that led you to that point.
Yeah, it definitely was not a direct route. So like many security people, I started off in computer science, got a degree in computer science. I went to work for the Department of Defense as a security professional for many years. I started off doing vulnerability assessments, telling people all of the things that were wrong on their network and how they could fix those. I wrote a lot of security guidance and spent a lot of my time trying to get organizations to implement various security mitigations, better protect their information, their networks, their people. And, throughout all of that, one of the things that I learned early on is technology is not always the problem, or rather, technology exists and it can do the things that we want to do when it comes to cybersecurity, but there's a lot of other reasons why people and organizations really struggle with cybersecurity. And those are all really centered around that human element. It's about people. If we think about it, cybersecurity is for people, designed by people, used by people, exploited by people. So people are really at the center of that. And so, when I just, learned about why is cybersecurity failing? What are all the reasons for that? And it goes back to things that are generated and have to do with people. So policies, that people make policies, processes, organizational security culture, people understanding or not understanding cybersecurity and what's expected of them, poor usability of security tools, technologies, processes, policies. Training is a big element. So all of these go back to people. And I was really interested in learning more of the science behind what I had been observing. Late in life, later in life, not too late in life, but later in life, I went back to graduate school to study human-centered computing and started doing research about the human element of cybersecurity. And had an opportunity to do a temporary assignment with NIST and their usability group, and loved it, and ended up eventually transferring over there to kind of continue doing that type of research and really getting at the center of cybersecurity, which is that human, those people.
So there's a couple, and there's a few things. I'll put the links to these items here. So there's a post and there's a program, and one speaks to usable cybersecurity, which I think is the old name
Yep.
of what you're working on, and now it's human-centered cybersecurity. And maybe that's a good place to start. Why the change, and maybe an overview of what does it mean to have user-centered cybersecurity. We were joking before we started recording. Is that
Mhm.
user awareness training
Right.
or what? So
Right.
yeah, why those terms? Why the change? What
Mhm.
does it mean?
Yeah. So the usable cybersecurity program has been around at NIST for 10, 12 years now. And I've been at NIST about 5.5 years. Um, it really it was rooted in usability. So when we talk about usability, we talk about whether something, can people perform a task with effectiveness, efficiency, and satisfaction. So kind of looking at those three elements. And so the program was founded in kind of usability of like passwords, different types of authentication mechanisms, biometrics, those types of things. Um, and we still do those, that type of research and looking into problems from that usability perspective. But we really go beyond that, and we've been going beyond that for a while. So it's not just about kind of like a usability of an interface, which is I think what people kind of think of, right? Like like this tool or this web, how unusable this particular website is. um, we really are going beyond that to look at people's perceptions, their attitudes about security, and how that impacts how they interact with cybersecurity. Um, really getting at um, those relationships that people have with cybersecurity, and it's not always about usability, right? There's like a lot of social factors that impact how we view online security and privacy. We were kind of finding, even as we marketed ourselves internally within our own organization, people kind of thought, oh, you all do like usability evaluations, and like we don't really like. And I was like, whoa, we can do more than that. We can like step back and look at organizational factors that might impact, how security is going. You mentioned security awareness training. That, I mean, there could be a usability component to that, but that's beyond usability. I mean, that's about how are people learning about security? Do they find that to be relevant to them? Do they see their responsibility in that? Are they getting enough instructions so that they can make good security decisions? So all of that encompasses or is part of human-centered cybersecurity. And so we've been talking as a group for a while that we wanted to a name that better reflected that and maybe cleared up some of the misconceptions that were kind of putting us in this little silo of only usability evaluations.
I love it. And can we further define the scope here? A lot of what I heard you say connects me to the end user,
Mm.
and not necessarily the security practitioner, which happen to be end users as well in some, right? They don't get a they
Mhm,
don't get a free
mhm,
pass on that, even though we
mhm.
might think they do. Does it focus primarily on end users, employees within business? Does it go outside the company to customers of the business? Kind of
Yeah,
where does that go?
it definitely is beyond end users. I mean, that's definitely, we do look at end users. So kind of like general public, typical employees, like the cybersecurity non-experts. We definitely do projects related to them. Now, myself, especially having been a security professional, I have a special place in my heart for trying to help security people because they are heroes. They do amazing things. They're overwhelmed. So how can we help do research to help them do their jobs better with with more like satisfaction, and how can we arm them with the knowledge that they need to then also improve the experience of the end users that they support. So we definitely look at specialized groups of people. We're starting a voting project looking more, eventually going to be looking more at election officials and some of the challenges that they have with cybersecurity, implementing cybersecurity. So our work really encompasses all of the stakeholders in cybersecurity. So it's not just, end user.
Interesting. Yeah, I can see the election officials, the campaigns. I know we've interviewed some folks on campaign stuff in the past, and strategies and people contributing. It's sensitive information, right?
Yeah.
And who has access? How do they do it? How do you secure it? All that stuff is fun. I want to maybe get your insight on. Do you have a few projects or programs that you can share? What initiated them? What was the outcome of them? Pick one or two maybe that are a passion area for you, maybe.
Sure. So one area that we actually have several projects related to this is, you mentioned security awareness and training, kind of a hot topic with a lot of organizations. So we have a project to help security awareness and training coordinators who are doing phishing simulation exercises. Some of my colleagues have developed something called the NIST phish scale to help those training coordinators contextualize their phishing click rates. So it's not all about the numbers. There's a lot more that goes into it, about determining whether or not a particular a simulated phishing email was more difficult or easier. And it's not just kind of from like the typical like phishing cues, like your spelling or grammar errors. There's a lot of user context that goes into that as well. So does that phishing email align with like my duties as in my organization? So if I get a financial related email and I work in finance, I'm more likely to click on it. So trying to help those coordinators to contextualize their phishing simulation click rates and to better tailor those to their employees, to their workforce. So that's part of the security awareness. And we've also done some work looking at government security awareness programs, again, from the security awareness professional perspective. What are the challenges that they are having in implementing these programs in their organizations? Are they like more compliance based with like, you need to get 100% people trained, what does that mean? It means 100% of the people took the training doesn't mean that you had an impact. So looking at it from those perspectives. And that information has really informed the group at NIST that's working on a new special publication about building a security awareness and training program. So we tend to do a lot that kind of feeds into the people that are writing kind of like the official NIST guidance. So that's definitely one vein of research that we've had a lot of good feedback about, and we feel like is making a real impact.
Can we stick with that one for a moment?
Sure. Yeah,
and,
go for it.
And maybe we'll get to another one. But I want to dig into that one a little bit, because I think as an organization, my sense across the board is we need to do something for X, right? And that's not our area of expertise. We bake muffins or cupcakes or whatever, and or we sell widgets to to the aerospace industry. We're not security professionals, but we have a security team. But all these different things, especially when we start talking about end user security awareness training, it's not firewall rules, right? This is human.
Yeah.
This is the way people think and react, and individually and together, and how they're influenced, and what incentivizes all this stuff, right, is human based. So what are some of the challenges? And I'm sure this is how you look at these programs and projects to help people get started. What are some of the challenges you see organizations facing? Um, is it understanding what the objective is? Is it uh, finding the products? Is it supporting them with the right
Mm.
team?
All of the above.
Yeah, I'm sure. I'm sure. So tell me a little more about some of the
Yeah.
challenges they face and how the work you do maybe helps unlock or overcome some of those barriers.
Yeah. Um, so I think a lot of um, a lot of problems has to. It was very interesting because we asked people, "Do you feel like you have leadership support?" And like most people were like, "Oh yeah, we definitely do." And then it was like, "Do you feel like you have like enough like resources or staff?" Oh no, not at all, not at all. So there's a disconnect there, right? Um, so it's not always prioritized, or it's, I mentioned the C word, compliance, before. Organizations tend to look at security awareness as a once a year compliance activity, especially in the government. I know there's other sectors that there's a requirement that everyone do security awareness training. And so they, are focused on like, we got to get people trained. It's a once a year thing. The problem is you do the once a year, people are just rushing through it. There's no reinforcement throughout the year. And so that kind of constant reinforcement, the sending reminders, the having activities throughout the year is so important. And a lot of organizations get that, but they're kind of struggling to find like, well, what's the most engaging thing from my employees, right? Like what's going to really like bring them in, get their attention. I get emails all the time that have to do with, security awareness type of topics, and I'm just like, delete, delete, delete. So how do you have this kind of these, how are you engaging a very diverse group of employees who like to receive information in very different ways? And so I think a lot of organizations kind of struggle with like, well, how do I do that? There's a lot of creative approaches. People talked about these escape rooms. They had it like a security awareness type of escape rooms, or they have different activities throughout the year that are more engaging types of games, things like that. So I think a lot of organizations struggle to find material past the kind of one and done. The other huge challenge is that a lot of organizations have no idea how successful their programs are or are not, because they're not gathering the types of measures of effectiveness or metrics that they need to really determine that. So, they have like an X number of people completed the training, but they don't have any impact measures, right? So, how is this actually changing people's behaviors and their attitudes? And so, collecting things like what I'm calling user generated security incidents, right? Um, so how many people are um, leaving their smart card and their reader, how many incidents we have, how many people are clicking on phishing emails or getting infected with malware, how many people are calling the help desk. The help desk is like a treasure trove of information about things that people are struggling with, right? Because they're the first line. So are we looking at those things and then getting like, that's the symptom that there's a problem, and like getting at the root cause? Well, why are people struggling with this? And to do that, you need to go and like actually like talk to people and get the impact and survey people, and hear from them about what's going on, like what can we do to help, and how that information can then inform your security awareness program. right? So if people are really struggling with phishing, maybe we need to ramp that up. Or maybe we just had a huge phishing campaign, and look, we see like the number of people reporting phishes are going up. Like that's good. Like that's an indicator maybe that we did something right. So I think a lot of organizations don't know what type of data to collect and how to show that their program's actually making an impact. And they also need that data to improve their program, right? So to keep, addressing problem areas, or maybe there's specific groups that need more help. So they're kind of left in the dark about, what to do next, without those measures of effectiveness.
Yeah. So I'm imagining a number of the listeners going, all right, I have a program, I use some tech, I should look at how I can use my data better, tied to objectives. But you said something that many probably gloss over as they're listening. Have a conversation with the people.
Mm,
And so that leads me to two things. One, are we as security professionals able to have those conversations? And let's assume maybe not everybody is,
mhm,
or comfortable with it,
mhm,
which then leads me to the second point of there's more to the program than the tools, the process, the data, the results. Um, how do you help people kind of encase the program with a broader scope? I'm thinking HR, marketing, um,
mm,
people that can help get the word out and help people understand why, and to have those conversations, maybe if it's not appropriate for
mhm,
security people to have them.
mhm.
So maybe can you talk about the bigger circle there?
You just answered the question with exactly how I was going to answer it.
Sorry.
Yeah, like yes. So first, my argument for a security awareness profession, like yes, like not everyone who is a security person is going to be like a great communicator. It's like that in a lot of jobs. That's fine. Not everyone needs to do that. You need some people that can definitely do that. But a security awareness professional should have that set of skills. I think one of the issues is that they often just take some random security person and they're like, you're the security awareness person, right? Like you don't necessarily have any other security, but you don't like no, you don't necessarily have like great communication skills or interpersonal skills, or you don't know anything about like instructional design or anything like that. So that I feel bad for those people. They don't have the kind of skill set. So how do we, not everyone is going to have it all, right? So exactly what you said is that there needs to be more collaboration, more building these kind of interdisciplinary teams where people have skills that complement each other. So involving the communications team is huge. I mean, we are finding that we haven't been making enough use of our great communications team, in our area. They're fantastic with helping like to craft messages, and they know like can help you translate your techno speak into kind of plain language or get people's attention. So enlisting the help of people that are, that know how to um, design, or more into instructional design or learning and know how people learn. And so it really does take a team, a diverse team of people to do that, because you're rarely going to find the whole package in one person, with respect to like what's needed for security awareness.
It's the superhero cybersecurity person.
Yeah, they exist. I've met a
They do
few,
exist. They
and
do.
they're amazing. But they usually also have a team. It's really difficult to
Yeah.
just do it alone. Yeah.
So I presume the work that comes out of your team and you're supporting uh, teams around you with the what are they called? Basically, whoever produces the final pieces. I presume you cover a lot of that in the materials that you develop and share with folks. Um, kind of, is it a big picture view of here's how you approach it? Here are the things you need to consider. examples of technology, examples of projects, examples of how much does it cover in the stuff that you put together?
Yeah, we try to, hopefully I'm I'm interpreting your question right and answering it well. We try to have a practical spin on what we do. So to kind of go into those suggestions for practitioners, I mean, we publish like researchy papers and things like that in research forums, but we always try to kind of come back to like, what is our main goal is to get information into the hands of people that can do something about it. And so we do have kind of those practical suggestions, examples. One of the great things about some of the research that we do is that we have like real world examples and lessons learned from other people doing similar types of jobs. And people have found that so valuable. Is just, learning from other, like, what are other people doing? I found in the security community where we tend to be very collaborative, and we want to hear what other people are doing and their
Yep.
experiences. And so we see ourselves as a conduit for helping some of that sharing as well.
Yeah, perfect answer. Because I'm actually looking at some of the word I was looking for is publication, right? You produce a
Oh,
lot,
okay.
you publish a lot of things. Sorry,
Yeah, yeah.
and there's a ton of resources, papers and presentations and videos and blogs,
Mhm.
um, all of which can help paint a picture. Um, I guess is there like an overview? I'm just thinking, is there something that says start here? Is there a way to guide people to, and then maybe we focus on phishing for a moment. Is
Mm.
there a start here place that people go, or do they just randomly research and see all the stuff you've done?
Just a place for people to start with
Yeah.
our information. Well, we recently revamped our human-centered cybersecurity web pages. There's a list of our kind of the topic areas that we're interested or that we've been working on. So people can click there. They can get an overview of what we're doing in the space, and then they can see it's organized by, more like kind of papers or blogs, videos, those types of things, to get, if there's a specific topic that they're interested in. Um, Looking for suggestions if people have other ideas of how to better organize it. But that's what we're doing right now.
Yep. Love it. So I want to go to you. You were about to when I derailed us. You were about to give another example of a program or a project. Want to share that one?
Oh, yeah. So this is an in progress, and it's something again that I feel very passionate about. As I mentioned before, I was a security practitioner, and I'm very interested in helping security practitioners. Um, so we've been doing a project to help bring the research and the practitioner communities together. Because I think about when I was a practitioner, how much I didn't know about, kind of human behavior and what's already been done, and what kind of research evidence is already out there that could help me do my job better. And I didn't know because I didn't live in that world, and I was busy, um, and not everyone has the opportunity to go back to graduate school to study it like I did. So there's so much great research that's been done that could be really helpful to practitioners, but how do we get it to them? And there's, and this is not unique to cybersecurity at all. This research practice gap, right? Um, is kind of prevalent throughout all kind of fields for all different types of reasons, right? So there's often not that translation done between like the very research oriented paper that goes into your methodology in great excruciating detail and all your statistical analysis. Like practitioners don't necessarily care about that. They care about kind of what you did in general and what you found, right? So that translation doesn't always take place because researchers, they have a different incentive structure, right? They're incentivized by publishing papers and well-respected forums and conferences and journals and they're not evaluated based on like who they give this stuff to and does it have an actual impact in practice. But what we've been finding in the human-centered cybersecurity community is these researchers really want to make an impact. They just, they don't necessarily have the time or the resources to do it. They're not sure how best to reach practitioners. So we did a couple surveys. We did one for practitioners and one for researchers, and just kind of for the researchers trying to figure out, well, how are you kind of incorporating practitioners throughout your whole research life cycle so that you make sure that your research is relevant to them, right? And then at the end that it's actionable, that they can find it, that it's translated into something that's meaningful to them. And then looking from the practitioner perspective about, how do they feel about kind of human-centered cybersecurity in general? Is it something that they try to incorporate into their work? What's the challenge that they have doing that? How do they want to receive information? So we're kind of going through the results now and doing our analysis. And in general, what we're finding is that both communities, they really want to share that information. There's just a lot of barriers in the way. So we need to look for solutions that doesn't put undue burden on either community. So one of the really interesting things when we were going through and reading about the research practice gap in other fields, there was a paper that suggested the establishment of what they call evidence bridges. So evidence meaning research evidence. And these are like intermediaries that take and synthesize research that is of interest to practitioners. So they have a pulse on practitioners and what practitioners care about, and they synthesize it into kind of a digestible form. And that doesn't mean dumbed down. It means, more actionable and something shorter for practitioners to take. And so they act as this, and then they kind of bring the practitioner needs over to the research community. And we don't really have that in cybersecurity.
I'll say we do.
Yeah.
It's called Chat
Oh.
GPT. Just
Well,
feed it all the research. I'm joking, but I'm not.
ITSP can be an evidence bridge in some ways, right? If you invite people like me who are researchers, and then you're asking me questions that are of interest to practitioners, you're kind of pulling out that information that people care about.
Yeah.
So, how can we bring these two communities together to share this information that's so important that security professionals don't learn about naturally, right? Like in their educational or their professional education, they're just not being exposed to this. So how can we do that?
Yeah, because I just did a podcast, gentleman from Nigeria, and he was talking about, it was a gruesome example, but when somebody's about to pull a trigger, their eyes do a certain thing. And bottom line he was trying to say is we as humans have signs or signals or things that we do before we take action. And if we can understand what that is, maybe we can get ahead of those things to help them not do something bad or to encourage them to do something good based on the signs that we're seeing. So it was very interesting to me that we have all these studies and all this research, and to your point, it's interesting, but could be meaningful and impactful. So you're talking about this gap. What's your plan? What's NIST's plan for helping to close that gap? Do you see? Is it communications? Is it platforms? Is it just talking like this? What's the idea?
Yeah, I mean, I will say that we're kind of early in our research, because we want to have evidence to inform our recommendations at the end. And we plan to do kind of a follow-up to interview some people to get some more in-depth information and their ideas for how do we bridge this gap as well. I don't know what kind of the solutions we'll look for, but what we're doing right now at NIST is we're really starting to encourage more and support more forums that are bringing researchers and practitioners together. I'll mention one. Here's my disclaimer that the opinions and that I express here are only mine and do not represent those of NIST. But we actually, this is official. We are co-sponsoring a conference called Impact that will be, I believe it's March 21st in McLean, Virginia. This is a conference that's been done in the UK for the last several years. And it is specifically for that, to bring researchers and practitioners together, to allow researchers a forum that they can talk to practitioners about some of the research that they've done that's very applicable to practice. And so it's coming to the US. I don't know that it's been officially advertised. I might have just outed it. But it will be soon if it hasn't. And so like those types of forums, we're very interested in bringing people together. How do we give researchers a platform to talk to practitioners and to get their feedback?
Well, I think obviously there are a gazillion ways to close that gap. You mentioned us in this conversation, and I'll just say now that you have a friend in ITSP Magazine to open those conversations. I'm happy to, with you as my co-host, bring researchers and practitioners together, and let's just rap about stuff if that's of interest. You have an open door for that. So anytime you feel that's something that's there, we can certainly do that. We're kind of getting close to the end here in terms of time. I'd like to give you a moment to, I presume there are ways for people to get involved, right? Not just absorb information, but give back and contribute to the work that you're doing. Are there ways for people to do that? Is it just connect with you, or are there ways to sign up for specific projects? Or tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, well, first of all, whenever NIST puts out a publication, and it's open for public comments, please do comment on that, especially if there's something, some human element aspect that you want to comment on, please do that. We don't necessarily have a great way to involve kind of general public people, but definitely you can connect with me on LinkedIn. I am very responsive, so feedback is fantastic. I have just recently started, whenever our group puts something out, we're sending a link to that. Would love to hear, was it useful? Did it make some kind of impact on you, maybe even, on an individual level or your organization? Are there things that we need to go into deeper? Are there other topics that are of particular interest? We want to get that feedback. So I think, and that's one of the easiest ways. Also, going to our website, my contact information is there. We have a email address, human-cybersec@nist.gov. Feel free to email us there. We are actually responsive. We do read the email and we do respond. So yeah, just send comments. Let us know how we're doing, how we can do better, what we need to look at. That's a big priority in the security community that maybe we're overlooking.
All I can say is kudos to you and the team. I mean, a huge amount of effort and results already. I mean, there's stuff on authentication and cryptography, and obviously we talked about phishing, but privacy as well, user perception, behavior. I'm sure that's an interesting one. You mentioned the voting one earlier, and I don't know if it's in concert or connection with NICE, but there's a youth security and privacy one as well. So a
Mhm.
lot of topics that all touch the human, which I love, and super happy to hear that you're doing all these things. And I echo what you said. I would encourage people to go and look around, see what's there, absorb what you can, provide feedback where you have it. Um, um, it's an important element. As I mentioned, Marco and I started ITSPmagazine because of this, and
Mhm.
it's great to see the work coming together, research driven, not just because we know it's important, trying to figure it
Yep.
out. We actually have data to help us do a
Yep.
better job
Yep.
with it.
Well, I
Uh,
appreciate the opportunity, Sean. It was great talking with you.
Always, Julie, and keep up the good work. We'll include links to some of the things we talked about here today, and of course, I would encourage everybody to share this with your friends and enemies both, and subscribe, have fun, comment, connect with us. And Julie, thank you again for taking the time today.
Thanks. My pleasure. Thanks.
We hope you enjoyed this conversation. If you learned something new and this story made you think, then share ITSP Magazine with your friends, family, and colleagues. If you represent a company and wish to associate your brand with our conversations, sponsor one or more of our columns. We hope you will come back for more stories and follow us on our journey. You can always find us at the intersection of technology, cybersecurity, and society.